Over the last 8 years, Nigeria's power sector has faced serious challenges, one of which is the continuous collapse of the national grid. With electricity being a major enabler for job creation, industrialization, sustainable growth and development, it has become difficult for some households and businesses. Between 2016 to 2023, there were about 500% increase in electricity tariff without a corresponding increase in power generation, transmission, and distribution via the national electricity grid. With this in mind, the need for the incoming administration to get it right with electricity cannot be overemphasized. The president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu, during his inaugural speech, promised that his administration would undo the many challenges facing the country's power sector. According to him, quote, electricity will become more accessible and affordable to businesses and homes alike. Power generation should nearly double, and transmission and distribution networks should be improved. We'll encourage states to develop local sources as well, end quote. The specifics of how Tinubu would achieve the above feat in the power sector have remained to be determined. But joining us in the studio is an energy analyst, Sheson Okwade. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Vero.
Good
and
morning,
Chief Mike,
Sheson.
good morning.
Good to see you.
Happy New Month.
Exactly.
Same
happy
to
June.
you. All right, and joining us via Zoom is an energy specialist, Aderonke. Thank you for joining us, Aderonke, on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Good morning.
Right. Let me begin with you, Aderonke. The president, in his inaugural speech, spoke to the matter of electricity, and he talked about it being more accessible and affordable to businesses and homes. And he also spoke to the matter of states generating or developing local sources. I wonder how this came to you when you heard that.
The first thing that came to me was that I'm glad that he put that out there, because once you put something out there, people will hold you accountable to whatever it is you have said. And, his very first day in assumption of his office as president, that was important enough for him to include in his speech. And I rightly believe that it's the way to go for energizing our economy, because, we're very power reliant. It's possible, what he has said, and there's so many initiatives already on ground that would help stimulate the economy in terms of power issues. In 2021, there was the performance improvement plan by the government, and that had started in 2021 and is supposed to go until 2026. They've had their year in, and this initiative is to release capex from the central bank to the distribution companies to improve on all their indices. They've had a one-year stint at this. It's been supported by NERC, and so far they've done very well. However, of course, there are constraints in the release of funds. So, with this out there now, it's going to be easier for the discos to come together and speak to the government, to let the government know what the plans were for the 5-year period, how well they've done in the first year, and what needs to be done, encouraged or discouraged going forward. So they pretty much are on track. And that's just one aspect of the energy mix. There's still the renewables, there's still coal. I know that the 6 coal plants are supposed to be put in place by 2037, an additional 9 gas-fired plants, and all of this will double the capacity that we already have. So there are a lot of things that are already ongoing that the government needs to consolidate, keep their eyes on the indices, and ensure that they keep running. So there's no need to start anything new. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to have what we have on ground. So right now we're very focused on thermal and hydro. There's need for us to continue to push for coal and renewables.
All right. If I have to stay on what Aderonke has said, Sheson, a lot of people have talked about renewables, and that is where the world is facing right now, and that Nigeria or even African countries should begin to look in that direction. But however, there is also the argument of some of the natural resources that we have. Like she mentioned the issue of coal. And coal is one of the resources that the advocates or proponents of renewable energy are running away from. But it's still an energy that Nigerians or Nigeria has not explored adequately, as it were. What would you say when it comes to utilizing everything that we have in the face of people calling for renewable energy?
Thank you very much. I'm sure you know when we started this idea of sustainability reporting for us in the financial world, we talked about the greener environment where we diffused out the fossil fuel, which we are currently using. Coal, again, is actually being discouraged, and everybody is tilting towards the path of saying, let's have the solar and the other areas. But truth be told, that is from the developed world. I am an advocate of whatever you have as your resources is what you should rely on. Make use of it judiciously and see how you can make best of it. So for me, using the coal is an area which we need to go. If it's going to deplete the climate, whichever way the developed climate are looking at it, for our own area as we speak, that is what we have. And we cannot blame God for giving us that resources. So we should maximize the use, because I don't think that you have something that will be harmful to you. It's just now that they are considering that one. Secondly, the other aspect of renewable energy. I must tell you that as we speak, we have more than enough that we can eject. But the mode at which we are carrying the renewable energy is the problem. I'm sure if you look at every organization, they are discontinuing from the major source and going into renewable energy. Practically everybody is adopting solar. And the means of storage is individual, not going into any central place where you can do. I read about a study in Germany, and as we speak, they beg individuals to make use of supply. And how do they come about this? That storage that you have in your house with those batteries, there should be a way where you can plug in those things into the national grid. And as at the time that there will be failure on the part of the national grid, there will be a communication back to you where you can make use of those things. I'm sure people will be asking, how achievable is that? But that's the best way to go, because I know a lot of individuals who can afford that renewable energy, venturing and investing in it, but are actually still missing out. They use it only for themselves, and the wastage that we are experiencing on the part of the national grid is what we are still experiencing there. When you save an energy for 24/7 and you are able to make use of the solar, but what you'll be consuming when there is no sunlight, vis-a-vis what you have stored, cannot be commensurate. So there will be losses. You come the next morning, there is sun, and you are making use of that, and your battery cannot. So we are looking at a way where the government can have a plug-in of some of this renewable energy back to the national grid. You can store more than enough that definitely will not be spread for other people to make use of. Going by the current one that we have, the Genco, the TCN, the Disco, there are a lot of challenges. As we speak, I'm sure you know we have the capability to generate over 12,000 megawatts. How much do we wheel out on a daily basis? Less than 4,000. Any attempt to go beyond 4,000, I'm sure you read in the news, grid collapse.
It will collapse.
So it's to tell you there is deficiency in the infrastructure. Transmitting what you are generating to the end user, which you and I belongs to. Government, the last administration, has invested massively in the transmission. And we are expecting the dividend of it at least to wheel out up to 6,000-7,000 of what we have. And we have another challenge again on the part of the Disco. I'm sure you know if the transformer in your area experience 24 hours for the next 7 days, it's going to explode. Because so many of them are obsolete. We have transformer that has been in use for the last 15, 20, 25 years and has not been replaced. Can you have a car of 25 years still functioning the same way it is? No. The answer is no. And that's why when there was privatization, Part of the things the disco sold to the government is investment in the replacement of some of this infrastructure. But ask yourself, how much of it have we seen? We have not seen a lot of that among the discos. We've seen a lot of the first set of people buying over the disco being taken over either by the financier and looking for another investor to buy them over. Is to tell you that the investment in the infrastructure that we even will, if we are able to succeed on the part of the TCN owned by the government to transmit that power to the disco, are they prepared and ready to transfer to you and I?
Distribute.
It's not available. So there is still a long way to go. The other aspect of it is metering. Now I'm willing, ready to say I will transmit to you. How are you going to be accountable? Some people will say you are a financial person in the energy sector. I deal more with energy audits. You discover there is a lot of losses on the part of the disco accounting for what they are saying. And a lot of them are struggling because the basic amenities to really account for the energy being consumed by individuals are not there. Everyone is yearning for meter. Can you install meter? There was a policy by NEC to say that every new connection must not be carried out if you do not meter them. But how much of this meter do we have currently in circulation? There are a lot of policies that we have on ground. I will support what Aderonke said. There is nothing to invent newly. All we need to see or to do is to harness the current thing that we have. Even with the three arms of the government, the generating arm, the transmission, and the disco, and see how we work hand in hand. The infrastructure that we thought when this privatization was carried out in 2013, we are not getting that value. Not as much as I don't know. In my area, I've not seen instances where new transformers were bought. Rather, you see citizen, resident, going, contributing,
Pulling sources together.
and
Resources
buying that.
transformers.
And the only thing some of these discos are doing is, okay, let's have an agreement. We might give you possibly an holiday for certain months to recoup some of the investments you have done. You've seen a lot of that playing out. But we expect the disco to actually come out and invest in it because that's their priority. It's not that of the citizen to go and put the small resources that they are having. And also investment in metering cannot be overemphasized. We've gone through the route of CAPMI. We've gone through the route of MAP. How are we faring with it? People are ready to pay. I'm an advocate that said government is coming and say we want to give you meter for free. Even in Freetown, there is no free lunch. Let people pay for it. People are ready. But there is a gap that some of us in the field have observed. We are making use of the same type of meter practically for everyone. I think we should adopt a different approach to this. Between you and I, in my house, as small as I am, I don't think I make use of more than 6 to 7 amps, even when I on all my AC. And that's for someone like me. Imagine a suya man by the roadside with one bulb and one freezer that is using to push. That is less than 3 amps. And you are making available meters that will capture up to 63 amps. The cost on its own is burdensome on the people. And we have suggested to the disco, make use of different meters. Let's have meters that can have the capability of 20 amps. Then people like me will not go ahead and be buying meters that is up to 63 amps or 100 amps as you have it. Maybe we'll be making those available to the chiefs, the people in the category of Mike, where they can make use of a big duplex. So we need to look at that approach from the metering perspective. We cannot be using the same apparatus. You can put in the mind of people in the rural area, where my parents, all they have is they are not ready to make use of AC because they have a good environment where it can give them natural fresh air. So all they have is maybe one TV in the sitting room, not like a chief in every room where all the TVs are there, ACs are there. So they must adopt that approach in the metering program. And we are calling on NEC. Enough of we using the same meter across board. Let's measure the load of every individual so that by the time you look at it, maybe I will be making use of a 20 amp meter that will cost me less than 30,000. As against that which you are paying about 60, 70,000. Then everyone will definitely look at which of this meter will fit into what I can plug in, then everybody will have, because we need accountability in terms of energy audit.
Right. Now, let me take that matter to Adirunke, talking about the accountability in energy audit as well as the deficiency in infrastructure, metering and distribution specifically. How would you want this administration to address all of this?
I'll say that it's the onus is on the DISCO. They know how much they're passing out. And once there's an imbalance in what you're receiving in terms of funds for what has been consumed, it's easy electronically, even from your base, to track where there are energy losses. And energy losses don't necessarily happen in the houses of people. Along the transmission, the distribution lines, there are losses. So one has to look into reducing to the barest minimum the losses, and then to ensure that there isn't a diversion, because people can't play around with meters. But these things are very easy to detect from your station, from wherever you're distributing from. So I don't even think those things are the issue. I think more than anything else, the communication between the government, the DISCOs, and the people are very critical. The president has said they want to make power accessible and affordable. How do you explain that to Nigerians so that they don't think that the government is just winding them on or telling them a story? The cost of fueling a home or powering a home at this time is, one, the cost you're paying to your DISCO, two, the cost of managing your generator, and then the cost of fueling, fueling your generator. If you put all of those costs together for a whole month and you tally it, you can actually get power cheaper if you either go partly renewable, partly. So it's not as if the tariff is going to drop. So when he said affordable, I could imagine that some Nigerians got excited that, oh, maybe the price of tariffs for power will reduce. It's not going to reduce because right now it's subsidized. So there is subsidy on power at the moment. But if the subsidy is removed and alternate sources are put in place and people are less reliant on fossil fuels and generators, one would see that the overall cost of powering homes and offices and businesses will reduce significantly. So on that term, I understand where the government is, but they need to have a consistent communication channel to people, to explain to people what it means, what to expect, and what they would need to do on their part. On the issue of accessibility, the government has now opened up the field for off-grid power solutions. So individual states can put in place small units of power plants to service their communities. For example, when I was in charge of power in Ogun State, we had certain markets, some of the large markets, transfer from fossil fuel to renewable. The big markets in Ijebu, the Itausu market, people were able to phase out their I better pass my neighbor generators and buying 10,000 naira of petrol or 2,000 naira of petrol daily. If you even do 2,000 naira of petrol, over a 30-day period, you spend 60,000 naira. What they were paying in revenue to the renewable company, which was periodic payment, was much less than 60,000. So it's exciting to know that there are avenues and the government is open to it. And you have a lot of grants that are being given out by NEP. You have the U.S. Trade Development Agency that is working with different agencies in the country to produce and ensure that these off-grid solutions can permeate the entire country. You have fisheries, you have west sawmills, anywhere where there's a cluster of industry, it's important that those are the areas that are targeted first. For example, Lagos State has done things in the markets, sawmills have been done, fisheries have been done. For example, Computer Village in Ikeja should have some form of an off-grid solution just for that area, whereby that is now removed. Whatever they're taking from the national grid can be given to other areas. And then you have a lot of rural areas where the needs are not that much. And you can put in individual solutions for those people. They only need maybe 4 or 5 bulbs television, one refrigerator, and a few bulbs in their homes. So it's easy to start dealing in clusters in the rural areas, in economic areas, so that the economy of those areas are rejuvenated and they're stable, and people are able to take more of the monies they're making out into putting back into their business, as opposed to using it to service their needs for power. So I think the government is doing very well. I just think that there needs to be consistency with policy enforcement, continuity, and the dialogue and communication with the citizens.
All right, Sheson, the issue of, recall that under former President Buhari, he had moved power from the exclusive list to concurrent list, and states are supposed to also be players in the power industry now. The Tinubu administration has come to say they will support states to also be partners in the business. What do you see changing, and how better off or how well off do you see that playing for Nigerians? Recall that there are places that there's still no electricity since the creation of the earth in parts of Nigeria.
Yeah, when that policy came up, we consider it as a right step in the right direction. And what do I mean? The states themselves need to get involved. And if you look currently, the connection of power for us in this country, it's an eyesore. There are a lot of cobwebs here and there. I've had opportunity to have engagement with the Lagos State Electricity Board. If you are saying a state like Lagos is mega city, and you look at the way connections are actually being done, you ask yourself, what value proposition can we get from this? So empowering the state to invest also in power is something that will go a long way to, balance two things. The environmental outlook of the state working hand in hand with the disco will definitely give it a face. We should have situations where areas you will run underground cable where other peoples can actually plug into. That is not the power or prerogative of the federal government. It's for the state, because you must give your state an outlook that really express what you're calling it. And that's why we feel it's a right step in the right direction. Also, I'm sure you know this current president was one of the advocates that started the IPP stuff. He started it in such a way that we developed one in Alausa that was generating power for the secretariat and the environment. So if you devolve the power, as we've done, to the states, it will empower people from the state. And some of the things we've actually been yearning for, franchising to locality. There are people who have the financial muscle to invest in the power sector by saying, give me this locality, I will invest in it, provide, the basic infrastructure, meter due, collect from the national grid, or vis-a-vis renewable energy and supply. Just like Aderonke said, we can now provide to you, but it will be under my management. And what would that limit or restrict? Issue of energy theft will definitely be reduced. If I'm given a specific area, not the one we are actually doing with the current disco, if I know that I'm to manage Magodo, under me, I engage a personnel that monitors day in, day out. If there is any bypass or anything, or there is reason for you not to vend or to buy power as expected, you see people at your doorstep within 24 hours. But as we speak, it's too big for the disco to manage the way they are going. And that's why we've been approaching them. Can you, divert the power, just as the federal government has done to the state, to individuals who have interest in investing? So when you come up with that investment, you give somebody a locality, you replace all the transformer, and like you said, as we speak currently, indeed, energy is being subsidized. So if you invest in it and you have 24-hour power supply, I can tell you for free, people are ready to pay. Because what you'll be doing is that you are going to improve the environment on its own, devoid it of the noise pollution, the foams that comes out of our generator. Because we've seen instances. Look at a particular disco, Ikeja, you know, with the premium customers that they have. I can tell you, some of those people are not actually making use of their generator. They pay more and they get more supply. So imagine if that is a business of an individual, you know, selling at premium to those people, combining it with renewable. Then some of those energy that are supposed to go to those areas are being reduced to go to area where you have less privileged people and they can go about getting energy from them. So it's a right step in the right direction, you know, diverging the power and giving it, you know, to the state to generate. From there, the state cannot approach individuals on investing in setting up IPP to generate power, both renewable and that of the national grid. And there will be integration, like we said, plugging back some of those energy saved on the renewable back to the national grid. But that can only be achieved if I know that in this my locality, I'm going to provide that central renewable. So when there is no national grid, I give you the this other side because it's cheaper and more affordable, and you provide that to everyone. So the national grid would definitely be, you have more surplus in that area for other people to benefit from. Mike, it is those of us in the city that are enjoying electricity. Like you said, some people don't know how it is. Some are still making use of what we call lantern to light up because they cannot even afford their rechargeable. And where would they even recharge their phone? Where would they recharge
They've never seen electricity before.
So situation where you are able to allow other people to invest in renewable energy, plugged it back to the system, you reduce drastically that of the national grid that can definitely be shared with those that are less privileged. And going by the route that everyone needs to be metered. That we cannot stop emphasizing it. Because whatever you give and you cannot account for, definitely you'll be running on the path of losses. So we must be able to invest in making sure that as we have renewable, and people are able, you see, most of the people that are actually having confidence in the disco, they have their meter. No, you can manage it yourself. You see individuals saying that, well, I have 24-hour supply. I may decide to off my freezer when I'm going out in the morning because I know for the next 2 days, it's still going to be very freezed. And that is reducing the consumption on your part as individual. Mike is doing the same. And on the overall, you are reducing that which is actually coming from the national grid. And that can definitely be shared with others. But situation where people don't have a means of accounting for what they are using. And people say, well, it's estimated billing they are bringing to me. I will continue to on the light. We have some people, they don't even have a switch to off their light. And what's the reason? They will tell you, I don't have means of accounting for this. They give me estimated billing. Whether I use it, I don't use it, it's the same approach. And let me own it. That is actually affecting the asset that you have in there. Because it's just like you are not using your car and you start the ignition and you leave the car and you come to work saying, I'm sure with the current cost of fuel, you would not try that. You think twice to get that done. That is the same thing we are doing to the asset of the electricity, the transformer. When you decide to just on the bulb where you are not using it. But I know every individual that is making use of prepaid meter. When you are not in your bedroom, you are in the living room. All you do is you switch off your AC, switch off your light, and make sure that it's only the one that you're using in the sitting room.
And we come to you now, Aderonke, with regards to this matter of decentralization. States, on the other hand, are not seeming to respond or buy into this direction of government. Yes, the president is talking about states developing local sources and the federal government supporting them, but it seems that some states still do not have the capacity or are not seeing themselves as taking up this responsibility.
Well, if a state is looking at their internally generated revenue, which is really what should be funding their state, they would start to look at things that they need to do to stimulate their local economy. If you look at the things that your state is good at, for example, you have Lagos, you have Ogun State, they have a lot of commercial activity. They have a lot of factories, they have a lot of sawmills, different clusters of economic activity. They understand that it's the taxation of these people and the amount that, the growth in those spaces are what actually brings them their IGR. So it's a no-brainer for certain states to take these opportunities very seriously. And it's a commercial activity. However, there's the things that they need to work with government on. One is the fact that there has to be access to financing, long-term financing. Our local banks are only able to put together short-term and medium-term financing. So there's need for funding from development agencies across the world. There's need to have access to grants. There's need to get sort of support from the federal government that backs up the request for funds from international donors. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on the side of making commercial this kind of businesses and having it have commercial sense. Because if anybody goes into a local bank to get money, you will get short-term funding that is very expensive. And you pass on those kind of costs to your customers, it will not make any sense. So first and foremost, the state government need to identify the clusters within their own state where such initiatives will bring in returns. So if you go to Agbara in Lagos or Ikeja Industrial Estate, no matter how much power you produce, you will find off-takers. And most of them will be very happy to even pay you upfront because they know that it's cheaper than them running their generators. So I think once a few states take this seriously and start making headway, you'll find out that their success will influence other states. And if it doesn't even tag on as quickly, you will find that state governments will invest in other states where they know there's a demand for the power that they produce. So I don't think it's something that we should worry too much about. When a few people delve into this and make some sense out of it, there will be a natural progression where it will be adopted and adapted to according to what the states need.
All right. Now, Sheson, recall that under former President Buhari's administration, he had signed a business deal with the Siemens of Germany, and they were supposed to do government-to-government business. As far as we were told, from the last report we got, Siemens has been working so hard to upgrade the infrastructure that you mentioned earlier. Now, talk to us from the window of how that is going to change things, especially when you say that we generate so much, but only about between 5,000 megawatts can be shipped out or can be sent out or distributed because we don't have the infrastructure. How will this change things?
Yeah, the project with Siemens, if properly monitored, will be a game changer, truth be told. Because generation as we speak, I would still say it's not a problem. We have lots of this energy being generated, wasting out. But situation where we are able to transmit it, and that's the bulk of the assignment given to Siemens, and also to work with the DISCO in improving the infrastructure, because it's not enough for you to now transmit to the DISCO and they are unable to, accommodate it in terms of being able to pay back to the market operators some of the things that are willed to them. It's a game changer, and that's just one of the several, like we're saying. That is the national grid. The renewable are things we expect that government should look for way. Can we produce some of the panels that are used for this renewable locally? All the infrastructure needed to make that work is here. We have the raw materials. We have the resources to carry it out, rather than we importing it. So to me, it's a call to the federal government. Can we invest in where we'll be producing some of those panels that we are using for renewable energy within the country, so that we can reduce the cost and people can definitely invest in it. If you are able to balance the two together, it's the way to go. I can tell you, if you make available electricity, definitely there will be growth. I'm sure you know a lot of artisans who are very creative are no longer doing that because there is no power supply to do that which they know how to do. So a lot of them resort into investing into big generator that they cannot afford. Who absorb the cost? It's we the people. So if you are able to provide electricity 24/7, I told a friend, I'm not even asking for 24/7. If I have renewable energy, I'm able to get from the federal government or the DISCO 15 hours. Leave the remaining 6 hours to me. I know in the next 2-3 years, you can develop a match up. And if you're able to have a central way of collecting the energy you reserve from the renewable energy, I'm sure you know a lot of us have 6, 7, 8 batteries at home, saving those energy to make use of where there is no supply, maybe at night, overnight. Situation where you can now transfer that into a central generating house where it can be distributed to other people, you discover that generation would definitely increase. But like I keep saying, the project with Siemens, if properly monitored, I don't have problem with issuing out a contract in this country. It's monitoring to get the desired result. There are times you do some contract and you only see the peripheral of it. Within 2-3 years, it will fizzle out. And you ask yourself, a lot has been invested. What is the result of that particular investment?
Right.
So we need proper monitoring of that investment. If it's judiciously done the way it should go, I think in the next 2-3 years, we'll see a lot of transformation happening as a nation. Get power supply right, and the nation will be better off for it.
All right, Aderonke, quickly, your final words on this matter.
Last words are, please, the government should not reinvent the wheel. Whatever we have going is very good. They just need to focus and ensure that they meet the milestones and that the funds are released on time to ensure that the DISCOs are able to improve the connectivity between themselves and the public. So policy changes, there needs to be stability, regulation, the capacity for, and the certainty of regulation needs to be maintained. And then the gas supply, we need to invest heavily in harnessing and harvesting our gas supplies from all the oil fields. The issue of flaring gas needs to be a thing of the past. We need to double up, in the next 5 years, yearly. So if we are doing 6,000 now, by next year we should be doing 12,000. From 12,000 we should be going on to 24,000. So that we're not waiting for a minimal increment year after year. We don't want to sit down at the end of the 4 years of this government and we've moved from 6,000 to 10,000. And last but not the least, the infrastructure for transmission, we need to find a way to get more people in the private sector involved in the financing to ensure that we build adequate infrastructure for the power process. The DISCOs, the GENCOs, everybody needs to be interconnected with up-to-date, live and viable systems. And most of these things are not rocket science. They've been done across the world. We just need to ensure that the right service providers are working on this and we remove the graft issues that usually arise when it comes to contracts in Nigeria. Overinflated contracts, too many middlemen. Those are the things that actually build up the cost. So I think we're in line for a good move if the government are consistent with their policies and they continue to ensure that the funds are released by the central bank for the most vulnerable aspects of the value chain of the power sector.
All right. Aderonke Onadoko, energy specialist, thank you for your time, as well as an energy analyst in the studio with us, Sheson Ukwandi. Thank you for your time as well.
My pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you.